Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Philippine Startup Week talk on demystifying equity crowdfunding. We're so happy to be here. My name is Nina Terol, Chief Marketing Officer of Talino Venture Labs, and I'll be your host and moderator for today. For this panel, it's really special. We have guests joining us, of course, here from the Philippines. We have guests coming in from the US, Singapore, and other parts of the globe. Our audience is also going to be international. So if you're calling in from somewhere, please share your location in the comment section. But wherever in the world you are, thank you for joining us. This is going to be a really exciting hour. So we'll be starting in a few minutes, but in the meantime, just get comfy, get a drink. This is going to be an interesting conversation. So, okay, I will be introducing our guests who are heavyweights in their own right. So I will start with Ananya Chandra, Managing Partner at InnoPact. Ananya is Managing Partner at InnoPact, an early-stage investor in high-impact technology startups across emerging markets, and leads Women Prosperity Lab, a startup ecosystem enabler backing the future of women tech. She's also a successful entrepreneur with experience leading the expansion of Shiro's, India's largest women tech startup, into Southeast Asia and taking her own company, Just Move, to exit. Hi, Ananya. Thank you
Hi,
so much
Nina.
for joining us.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
All right, thank you so much. And up next, we have Nico Sibal, Director of Portfolio Management at Foxmont Capital Partners. Nico has had extensive business experience in both Asia and the US, and prior to joining Foxmont, he was a CFO for several startups, including ones that he co founded. These covered a wide range of industries such as edtech, agri-tech, food and beverage, and consumer products. He started his career with Ernst& Young in Palo Alto, California, working with multiple multinational Silicon Valley tech firms. Nico received an MBA from the Yale School of Management in 2011, and before that, he graduated from Santa Clara University with a bachelor's degree in economics. Hi, Nico. Good morning out there at the Bay Area.
Hi, Nina. Good morning. Thanks for having
All
me.
right.
Really excited to be
Thank
here.
Thank you so much. And up next, we have my colleague who's been working really, really hard on our own equity crowdfunding campaign. We have Rafael John, or RJ Oriel, Corporate Development Lead at Talino Venture Labs. RJ is a serial entrepreneur with over a decade of international business experience in helping public and private institutions innovate and grow in new markets. And he's really been the driving force, behind Talino's corporate development. So, hi, RJ.
Hello, hello. Good morning. Really
Good
missing
morning.
that warm weather in the Philippines right now. It's getting really cold out here in LA, but good morning.
Yeah, we'll
And
keep it
yeah,
sunny out here. So thank you so
that's
much for
great.
joining us.
Thank you
And
for having me.
last but not least, my boss at Talino, Winston Damarillo, CEO at Talino Venture Labs. So Winston is the founder and CEO of Talino Venture Labs, a global venture studio of inclusive fintech that bridges the financial inclusion gap for underserved and underrepresented groups around the world. He's also the executive chairman of Amihan Global Strategies, a leader in digital transformation in Southeast Asia, as well as founder of DevCon Philippines, the largest community of tech professionals in the country. Winston is also a Silicon Valley veteran with three successful startup exits, a venture capitalist, and a young global leader of the World Economic Forum, and a member of the Board of Governors of the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation. Hi, Winston. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, hi Nina. Great to be here and excited to speak to our Filipino startups again.
All right, so we're super excited to dive in. This is going to be a bit of a fresh topic for our Philippine startups. So, we're here to demystify equity crowdfunding. But first, here's an icebreaker question for all our guests, and you'll all have about 30 seconds each to answer. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word just crowdfunding? So, some of us might think of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, those types of platforms, but we'd like to hear from our panelists, right? So, what's at first thing? And we'll start with the lady in the panel, Ananya.
Yeah. I think you took my answer. Basically, I think of platforms that have been part of kind of the last 10 years. They've been such major players. Where you open Facebook, you open Insta. I think of GoFundMe. I think of
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter. I think of AngelList, and now more recently, I think of platforms like WeFunder and Republic.
Great. So yeah, it's really those enabling platforms, right? So thank you, Ananya. Now let's go to Nico. As someone who's on the investment side, what do you think when you think of crowdfunding?
Sure. I think of crowdfunding, I think of access. It was mentioned access for the company for a new type of funder, but on the investing side, for the funder investor, there's now access to a new potential investment class. And then also for the investor, crowdfunding becomes another source of companies to look for that previously it might have been incubators, accelerators, but now there's crowdfunding too.
Yeah, great. So it really just diversifies everything, right? Now for RJ, you've been in the thick of the action, so you're more
In a way,
experienced
yeah.
now, right? So what do you now think of when you think of crowdfunding?
It's two things that come to mind right away. It's just community and opportunity. I really fell in love with the democratization of access to capital for companies, and also at the same time the opportunity for everyday investors and everyday people to have the chance to invest in a company they believe in. Those two things.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
great. Community and opportunity. Thank you, RJ. And last but not least, Winston.
Well, I used to think with crowdfunding that I get access to, first access to what's cool out there, right? And that's kind of where we started with Indiegogo and Kickstarter. I think a lot of the innovation product have been released through that crowdfunding to begin with. And I guess that's what I think of the first. But what gets me exciting these days is the idea that very small investors get to become angel investors, and they get to participate in not just the success but in growth also of the companies they're fans of. So I guess cool and exciting transcends from product to equity as well. So that's what I think of.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That actually segues to us diving into the meat of the topic. So, yeah, we used to think of crowdfunding as being able to access cool products, and Ananya mentioned some of the platforms, and then now from products to actual companies, right? So, what makes equity crowdfunding unique and an attractive source? Like, why did Talino decide to go that route? Sorry, that would be for Winston or
Oh, I'm
RJ.
sorry.
Yeah.
No, I think for Talino, we decided to go crowdfunding because it lines up really really well to our mission of making financial access inclusive. And so we actually experimented on this because we feel like if we were to talk about inclusion, and we are building a lot of companies around inclusion technologies, that we should be able to also make that available through as many investors as possible. So what's exciting about crowdfunding when it pertains to Talino is that for $100, we're inviting people to become angel investors, and for $100, we're inviting people to become impact investors. And I think there's no better way to align our mission in terms of what we're going to do to our customers with the mission of enabling our investors to also be a part of that. So, it's a great, alignment to what we do, and we're excited about it. And, I wake up every morning excited to see my email because I get investors that wishes Talino well. It's excited about our prospects, and they are now a part of our mission to help, the unbanked and the undercapitalized SMEs, and in doing that in a global scale is kind of fun.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to also ask Ananya from perspectives of other startups, and you mentioned WeFunder and Republic. From your perspective, why do you think it's an attractive option for startups, or at least the startups you've also worked with?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that question. I think I would say so. Essentially, equity crowdfunding is it's part of an evolution. You have your traditional VCs, which basically had the remit of startup investing for many many years, and that's a very closed ecosystem. That ecosystem involves knowing the right people for female entrepreneurs, it does involve a certain level of like, being part of the brotherhood of VC land, which, a lot of female entrepreneurs don't have access to. And for, beyond just being a closed system of capital, I think a traditional VC has many companies in their portfolio. They're investing largely a limited partners capital. There's very limited time that any VC can devote to any one portfolio company under the traditional VC models. So one of the key advantages of crowdfunding your startup and giving away equity to angel investors rather than just VCs is that you actually have the opportunity to access potential buyers, as and potential well-wishers, people who actually use your product or service. Also, second advantage is that you also get an opportunity to really test your idea directly. So it's not just trying to create a pitch deck and convince a few VCs, but you're actually taking it to market, and you're not only selling your product, but you're also giving people the chance to participate on the upside. And I've actually recommended WeFunder now to two startups that have come my way as a result, because some of their ideas were a little out there, and for any investor, timing is the thing, right? Why now? And the best way to test why now is actually to take it to a platform like WeFunder. And I think the third reason is that we're seeing this in terms of behavior of entrepreneurs as well, is to have a cap table. So usually you want to keep a very clean cap table for sure. But what we're seeing is that this is almost like a test run. Somebody was talking about how it's like a mini IPO. It's a test run for what you'll need to have, because there's so much due diligence that goes up front before you even take it to a platform like WeFunder. So the third thing is it's a test run if you're a scale up, to seeing what you would need to do to actually potentially IPO that in the future.
Well, you mentioned some really great points that I think we're going to dive into later when we talk about, what startups and investors alike need to do and dive into in that process. But I would like Nico to comment on, that opening up of the space. Because, yeah, it used to be that, the VC community or the angels, you had the exclusive sneak peek, right? Or what some people would say, you had access to the ground floor before the startups grow up. And Winston was also talking about you get early access. But now equity crowdfunding gives more people that sneak peek that the VC community used to have access to. So what do you think about this evolution?
Sure. No, I think that's great, especially as you mentioned, there's that sneak peek, but that ecosystem is also in a sense a little bit limited, and between VCs, traditional investors, angel investors, while they see the opportunities, some may be overlooked. And I believe that's where it's exciting for the startups, that they're not just limited to that. It's already an ecosystem, which is maybe on the smaller side. And then within that, angel investors and VCs also have their own specific viewpoints, parameters, and that's something that may have to be fit into. And while I believe that can give a very powerful boost to many companies, it doesn't necessarily fit all companies. And so those startups, those companies can directly access those that agree with their viewpoint. And I think that's very exciting and helps increase the general ecosystem, which I believe helps everybody.
No, that's great. And you did talk about ecosystem. So both ways, it's increasing the ecosystem on the investment side, but also on the startup side, it's just giving them, and I'll use a word that RJ used earlier, a bigger community, right? So I will ask RJ about that, since you've also been at the forefront of equity crowdfunding and you've really been rallying the community. What has that been like? I mean, what's it like communicating to a much larger base?
Well, number one, before you dive into equity crowdfunding or any campaign when you're fundraising, is being really comfortable being a steward of people's money, right? You're a caretaker of people's hard-earned investment money that they have to actually put into a company. So But to have context is before you really dive in, you have to know the ins and outs of the industry and what separates equity crowdfunding from other crowdfunding industries like gifting or philanthropic or humanitarian causes like on GoFundMe or funding a product on Kickstarter. Those things you have to know that, and then the context of it as well. Like for equity crowdfunding, the rise first started in 2012, um, which President Obama signed, which is part of the Jobs Act. And what came out of that was regulation crowdfunding. And this solution was a direct result of the financial crisis because there was a drastic decline during and after the global financial crisis of small business activity. So the U.S. government needed a solution to figure out ways to provide access to capital for entrepreneurs, especially small businesses. So, but it took another 4 years for the SEC to finally write the rules and regulations set out to, really protect investors. But it took another 5 years before the SEC finally raised the maximum from 1 million to 5 million just this year. Earlier, I think it was back in March. So now the industry is really, really growing. But in terms of when you're really preparing to dive in and prepare your company, I think the first thing you have to set your goals and expectations of what you want to accomplish, how much you want to raise, and all of those things. Selecting the right platform because there's myriad of platforms currently, from Republic, Start Engine to Seed Invest, and our platform that we're using is WeFunder. You can take a look at how many members they have. Like WeFunder, I think they have now 1.2 million active angels in their network. So that can really grow. And then, of course, have the right messaging and approach, and then engage your network, build out your list of who you're going to target. Your goals for any business would be different from, if you're doing SaaS or building out a restaurant. But engaging that community, if it's the right approach for you, then you should certainly dive into it.
Yeah, and I hope that the startups here were taking notes because you gave a lot of really great tips and even other platforms. But I wanted to also ask Winston and Ananya, those who've experienced it or who've advised other startups to get into equity crowdfunding, from a due diligence perspective, or other things that RJ has mentioned, what else should a startup be ready for? And how do you also know that you're ready? Also to the startups who are in this audience, how can they tell that it's the right timing, the right ingredients to actually embark on this?
Well, I think it's really important that the crowdfunding, the Jobs Act, the Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act of the United States is intended for the small business. I think when we are so used to trying to impress VCs, we act differently. And crowdfunding is a really good opportunity to just, be honest, be transparent, and let your potential investors know precisely where you are in your business journey. And that's what I like about it, right? The information you share is public, so you need to put a little bit more consciousness in your disclosures that the SEC is watching, and that whatever you write and you broadcast, it's memorialized somewhere else. But also be comforted in the fact that most of the investors in crowdfunding are not really ruthless. They're not going to look for weaknesses that they can exploit. They either like you or they don't. That's it, right? And so it's a refreshing new way to actually really present your company. And with that, accounting is really important. Your financials are reviewed and then audited. Disclosures are really important. Conflicts of interest are normal. Related party transactions are normal. As long as you say it, it doesn't really harm you. So it's again another opportunity to really be frank and honest on that. And then the other thing is that be ready to tweak incrementally. I think we tweak our fundraising every day based on feedback and based on our customers and our investors actually giving us pointers. So it's a whole new world. It's interesting from that perspective. I think it's more organic, and I think it's more natural to get support from a really large group of people who believes in your business. So it's a new experience for me as an entrepreneur, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, you've been a VC, you've been an entrepreneur, you've exited, but this is still a completely new ball game, right?
I still love VCs, but not as much anymore. Uh, no,
On
I
that
just
note,
feel
I'm
like
gonna
there's
ask.
another channel for investments.
Mhm.
It's more inclusive, and I really just hope that it's available not just for American based startups, but all around the world. So I think the model that the United States is showing is something we can all adopt, and I'm hoping someday it becomes popular as well in the Philippines.
And we will dive into a bit of that later on. But I will ask Nico to also comment on that, and then Ananya after. So yeah, from the investor standpoint, the conversations are different. I can imagine. The due diligence is also different, or is it the same, but you're just looking at smaller sizes?
Right. I think in many ways it's still the very much a similar process as a traditional investor when you're looking at the crowdfunding. Maybe on the surface it looks like it could be a casual investment, but I think when you look deeper into it, it's still very serious. And so what does that mean? That means how and how much you look into it depends on the stage, how much you're investing, for what reason, um, and then as much similar to a typical investment, you start with what's available and then go look beyond the page, talk to the people, look at the product. The best part with many of these platforms is that you have the chance to ask the founder and company directly, so you can uh, review the answers, not only for the answers, but even how they're answering it. So the platforms provide the support in terms of that due diligence in many ways. Um, and as far as the due diligence, it's a really great opportunity to go deeper into that for the people that are investing in what they're passionate about and what they know about. For example, healthcare, education, gaming, or a certain consumer product they've already been impacted by. So in that sense, a lot of their due diligence is already done by what they do or what they already use in their free time.
Yeah,
That's a yeah. Go
the
ahead, RJ.
sorry, the transparency of equity crowdfunding platforms is really amazing, so that investors can really make a well-informed, sound investment decision. Like, you have to show, as an entrepreneur, you have to be very comfortable to show your financials and have it audited, and then you have to publish your Form C, and which kind of takes a while. But there are some costs to that, legal fees and whatnot. But the in terms of due diligence, yeah, it's really transparent, which is great, and detail oriented.
Yeah, I mean, Nico mentioned, the support for the investors. RJ and I are staying tuned to our WeFunder page because, there are live FAQs. Your investors can ask you questions and you're
Hmm.
meant to respond, right? So pretty much like them direct messaging you. So it's a very, very transparent platform. But I'll ask Ananya, because you mentioned earlier that you've recommended for some startups to get into equity crowdfunding. How do you tell that from the outside? How do you tell that a startup is ready?
Right. I think I mean, a lot of those points have been covered in the excellent responses from everyone else. But uh, I think a few things that I feel startups should keep in mind is that if one of the key benefits of equity crowdfunding from a startup's point of view is getting closer to um, aligning investor interests with ultimately what the product or service you're offering. um, I would think that equity crowdfunding can be particularly beneficial for startups that are either direct to consumer or have a B2C strong consumer angle, or they're very mission driven. There's a huge opportunity for mission alignment and creating a movement through your crowdfunding campaign. I think that for perhaps B2B solutions that are more large enterprise focused, or are very capital intensive, which will require huge amounts of capital raises down the line, which would mean, you want your larger, more traditional VCs that may or may not be today very comfortable with the equity crowdfunding model. I think then perhaps you should consider whether whether that mode of fundraising is right for you. I think that another thing to keep in mind is that potentially for deep tech startups, which are very IP driven, and or any startup where there are strong business reasons for confidentiality, it's something to think about whether it's too early in the game to reveal certain parts of your business model or the numbers or even your traction. So it's not necessarily around IP, but in certain industries, you know, there's a reason why industry espionage exists. So, so just a couple of those things. And in terms of readiness, I think, Winston and Raphael both touched upon this, that, there are a lot of disclosures you do need to make. And that it's you should have then traction, or you should have numbers that can attract an audience. Otherwise, it may be a little too early. You're selling an idea. And then the second thing is that it's also slightly more time consuming. A VC is not coming and giving you a check. And I face this myself. I'm not a traditional VC. I syndicate my deals, and so I'm midway. It's not as fast as getting money in the bank as a VC can just wire. Theoretically, VCs are also often waiting for their second close, etc. But the idea is, think about what sort of company you have. Think about what sort of, why you're doing equity crowdfunding. Investors, think about what is, whether the disclosures will be too onerous and can potentially expose you to risks. And think about the timeline that you have in mind.
Oh, that's a lot, but what I'm taking away from that is that it's really great also for startups that already have that fan base and that community, that, again, to bring up a word that RJ mentioned earlier, and you have to be at peace basically with the disclosures you're going to make, because it's going to be out there, right? For anyone to scrutinize. So that's a lot. But I wanted now to dive into the other side. So on the investment side, so you've all experienced it. I mean, I think more people now in the audience, also because of the equity crowdfunding platforms, have experienced that. And Winston brought up a term that we see now to be attractive to people, that you can actually be an angel investor for as little as $100. That wasn't possible before. You used to have a certain amount of money to be an angel investor. But why do you think is this going to be attractive to more people down the road? I mean, there's a lot of due diligence to also do as an investor, right? But why should people really make the time for this? Anyone can start. Maybe we'll start with Nico.
Sure. I think now, while it's it's still in the beginning stages, it can seem like that. But I think the potential and the opportunity for the long tail of investors, right, with that buy-in amount of $100, or even the companies that don't need in the millions, but they can get started, or they just need a smaller amount. So, for example, Amazon, other platforms, they've made it possible, because their reach is the US, worldwide, that a niche product can thrive. They're not dependent on being on the shelf or going through traditional means. And so as this matures, I believe it could be the same way for the companies and the investors on both sides. Right now, it's exciting with the larger companies that are using crowdfunding as an alternative to traditional. But it'll be exciting when it gets to the point where it reaches the companies and the investors that weren't going to go through that path in the first place. They simply are made for this platform, this kind of investment.
Oh, that's great. It really just opens up the space. So who else would like to react to that?
Well, I was
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Anand.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Winston.
No, I was just gonna say that, in your life as an entrepreneur, and I've lived this a lot, is that you have these funding chasms, right? in between seed and A and in between A and B, right? And those are the things that is really tough, right? And if especially if you're trying to raise big chunks, right? So if you go from a seed of 1 million to a Series A of 5 million to a Series B of 20, in between that, there are gaps, and it's sometimes a lot of startups die within those gaps. And I think crowdfunding is an important piece of your arsenal to ensure that you have that capability to raise continuous amounts of capital through those gaps, right? And that actually allows startups to now have a good balance of, I don't have to rush my next round. I have a little bit of a leeway to get there. I can get a much more, I would say, formalized way to get angel investors, not just at the very beginning of my company, but in between funding rounds of my companies. Um, Crowdfunding has certainly also evolved and innovated quite a bit. You can now have secondary markets for crowdfunded equity, so you can really have this a bit of a play like a public market in a private startup. So it's kind of cool. And then finally, the other thing that drives what I think would be a really good investor participation is that. So imagine this: you can invest $100 per company. For $1,000, you can invest in 10 companies. For $10,000, you can invest in 100 companies. And if one of those become Amazon, then they return 2 to 3,000 times, right? And so you can now, it really makes it so that everybody has the same economics as the well-connected VC, while providing the entrepreneur a good financing gap, stopgap in between fundraising. So I think it's not either or. I think venture investment and crowdfunding investment can coexist because they use the same tools now. But it's a really vital and super exciting tool for an entrepreneur to wield as well.
Yeah, imagine what you can do with $1,000, right? So thank you for that insight, Winston. Yes, Ananya.
Yeah, no, just adding to what Winston said, I'm particularly very excited about democratizing, like who gets to participate in the asymmetric returns that angel investing opens you up to, right? Um, like, of course, 9 out of 10 companies may go bust, but for that one company that you've angel invested in, you get to essentially have a seat on the table with the VCs who came in that round and have participated. And I think essentially it's great. It's a win for startups for sure, because essentially they get a wider investor pool. It's a win for angel investors who otherwise don't have access to startup investing opportunities, don't have access to vetted startup invested opportunities, would need to figure out where they can go for somebody who's working somewhere to be able to every almost anyone can put in 5,000 pesos, let's say, right? And we have that much to spare. The point is, where can I go today and evaluate the various opportunities? And I think platforms like WeFunder and crowdfunding in general allows you to have that kind of access. And I think another great reason to think about becoming an angel investor in general, and the only thing is now it's even more doable because the size of the check you're writing is so much smaller. Another reason is that it's just the learning. So you're basically committing to lifelong learning as an angel investor because you're seeing the companies you're investing in go from round to round. So some of the reasons why people do it is because they essentially get to behave like a shadow co-founder, right? Early stage company, you as an investor, you get to see the problems and challenges and opportunities from the inside as well. So I think there are great reasons to do it. And I think the last thing is that it's a great opportunity to pay it forward. A lot of us have, kind of, as especially entrepreneurs, have benefited from getting experience, etc. And by angel investing some of our wealth back into startups, it's a great way to pay that forward, the knowledge we've accumulated.
No, thank you, Ananya. And let's face it, startups are sexy, right? But not everyone can take that risk to found a startup or be a startup. And angel investing is one way you can participate. And like Ananya said, like be a shadow co-founder, and you're seeing the growth of startups. So I wanted to ask RJ, because you've spoken to a wide base, right? Including the titos and the
Long
titas
time. Yeah.
types. And you mentioned in some previous conversations we've had where sometimes they are newlyweds or sometimes they're retirees. For these retail investors, why do they get into it?
Well, it's very empowering at the same time, right? So you're turning you if you're a fan of a company, you're a customer, and then you could become an owner of that business. So let's say you invest in Coke, you'll tell all your friends to, hey, drink Coke, Coca-Cola, buy Coke, because you're invested in that business, right? But going back to the, retail capital and speaking to I'd say non-accredited investors, they're intelligent, they're savvy, they know what they're doing. They Google the company, they check out the video, they read all the documents. They're very sophisticated as well. They should be treated just like any other institutional investor or anything like that, because it's very enlightening what they want to accomplish with their financial goals. If you're newlywed, you're planning for your future. You're planning for your kids' college education. If you're gearing up to retire, you want maybe a little nest egg and take a little chance. But at the same time, you might be a little bit older, but there's a little excitement to invest in a startup that you can participate with other VCs, and you're not just reading the news about a hot startup from Silicon Valley, but you're actually investing in a cool startup that you really trust and believe in, and that can actually grow and hit the journey. So from all walks of life, reached out to my family and friends, going back to before you dive into equity crowdfunding, you do a friends and family round like any other business, but make sure you treat them well and pick up the lunch or dinner bill, because they're investors, and treat them as such too, and be timely in your response to them. I think there's a common courtesy just to treat everybody the same, especially if they're invested in your work and company.
Yeah, it's really a great opportunity to I guess also humanize the investment experience, right? Because if your investor is your dad and he's gonna ask you questions at the dinner table, so it
Yeah.
doesn't get more real than that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
no, really great insights. I know that Winston will have to drop off shortly, but we'll ask this question. You've given a lot of insights, a lot of great tips. But if you could, I guess, crystallize or summarize a really, really great tip or maybe even a hack for both a startup and an investor who's just considering equity crowdfunding, what piece of advice or what top hack or insight would you share with them? This time, we'll start with Winston, and then we'll go with RJ, Ananya, and Nico.
Well, first of all, don't be afraid of it. The amount of disclosures, data, and data room you need to have for crowdfunding is no more than what you'll need for VC anyway. In fact, it reinforced. So this is the other thing I wanted to share with everyone. It reinforced our VC funding. So the moment we announced we're doing crowdfunding, all our VC deals just closed instantly. Like we closed the VC round in 2 to 3 weeks because of that. But it's a bit of it is because you've set a timeline. VCs like timelines. They like deadlines, and they also like competition. So it's good to kind of put that pressure on to begin with. So I highly recommend it, at least for that purpose. But secondarily, it's a highly organized friends and family round. So if you are thinking about friends and family round, you are already going to be exposing yourselves to your friends, your relatives, and we don't want them to be former friends and former relatives that returned my call, right? So crowdfunding actually really formalizes that as well, because they get pulled into a common bucket as they invest, and then you are required by law to disclose more regularly about quarterly to your friends and family. So it kind of creates a professional barrier between you and your friends and families. It helps really, really well. And finally, just like anything, it's a campaign, right? Treat crowdfunding like you're launching a product, right? You have to prepare that product. You have to ensure that the entire company is aware of what you're offering, to make sure that you have a plan of attack, you have a funnel plan. So it's really, think of it as you're launching a product. And then finally, it's also highly iterative in that don't worry if your first shot at it doesn't work, try again, right? And that's the nice thing about crowdfunding as well, is that you are able to really iterate as you go along, sort of like an MVP for raising money. For all those reasons, I really like crowdfunding from that perspective. As a former VC, I think it's a good arsenal that startups should use. All my startups, all the companies we built will have to go through it. It's now part of our routine. Uh, yeah, but it's great. It really is a great tool. I'm just hoping that it expands more.
All right. Thank you so much, Vincent. So,
Mhm.
guys, I hope you've been taking notes. Next, RJ.
Yeah, the system, like on WeFunder, it allows you to test the waters. So during the testing the waters mode, you can invite investors to make reservations into your company, but there's no exchange of actual deposits of cash or anything like that until you officially file your Form C documents and other legal requirements. But what I like about equity crowdfunding is really the impact it has on a community. And this goes back in line with the Jobs Act and what it was specifically made for. Recent data and research shows that the investments made into equity crowdfunding into the local community, it circulates 6 times before that money is actually leaves that community. So just this year, up to the third quarter, equity crowdfunding platforms here in the U.S. have already raised over $1 billion. So imagine $1 billion circulating in a local economy 6 times. So how many vendors and contractors it pays and supports that local community? Like if there's a huge corporation that moves into that community, what happens to your local favorite restaurant or coffee shop or something like that, right? So I like the impact that this is supposed to have on the community and businesses that you want to continue to support movements like that. But yeah, this is really supposed to empower the crowd and build up a brand for businesses. But what I'm starting to forecast and anticipate is I think there will be a time in the next few years, maybe sooner than that, is maybe celebrities will start to monetize their followers and likes outside of advertising and sponsorships, but providing their followers with equity in some sort of product that they would want to do. I think that might be the next wave, and that could be very disadvantageous of what specifically the Jobs Act was made for, and equity crowdfunding in general. So there's certain movements, of course, and what I like to call this decade is like really the social media decade, where the crowd, where you have social credit with those followers and likes, and equity crowdfunding kind of is part of that, because you're getting that social credit for your company with the level of volume of investors and whatnot. Yeah.
And you brought up a great point because it's really meant to be for the smaller players, right? So
Mhm.
hopefully it stays accessible. Yes, and Ananya, we'll move on to you.
Sure. I think I think one thing that just as like final parting advice for startups is there may be this conception that equity crowdfunding, how will it be perceived by VCs, so on and so forth. And the good thing is VCs are embracing angels on cap tables. It's particularly at the early stages. Maybe at Series A onwards, they no longer want syndicates, but actually startups that are too early for them, they see signals. If you see a very high profile angel investor on the cap table, that's a good signal for a VC. um, I was reading somewhere that last year PitchBook shared that more than 60% of all VC deals had a non-VC, like all funding rounds had a non-VC at least. So I mean, these are great trends. So I would tell startups not to hesitate on just on that count. I think, as Winston shared, in fact, once Talino started its round is when kind of and there was traction like that. That was a great proof point for VCs who may have otherwise just been waiting. I think from an
Mhm.
investor's point of view, couple of things, couple of tips that other angels have shared with me in the past. Start slowly. Only invest money that you're okay with for it to go to zero. Everything looks good in the beginning. So start slowly, go over some time and start evaluating and avoid FOMO.
Wow, avoid FOMO. Okay, I'm gonna ask more about that later on. Thank you. Yes, Nico, for your
Sure.
tip.
For a startup, I would definitely say to use it. To it's there. It's getting very established. Don't consider it as a backup funding compared to the traditional. It's getting to the point where it will be a traditional path of funding. So to put it as a primary source of funding and evaluate if it's right for you and prepare accordingly. Because many times it's not the first investor or customer that likes what you do, and there's this opportunity to try that one more person, and in this case many people, and so definitely take advantage of that.
All right, thank you so much. That's been a great panel. We will have some questions and questions from the audience, but before that, we wanted to thank Winston. We know you have to leave for another meeting. It's been such an insightful session, and we look forward to sharing more notes. But is there anything else you want to say, Winston, before you drop off?
Well, I think it's super encouraging what's going on in the Philippine startup scene, and I'm just kind of super excited as a Filipino that we're now finally getting great traction in the Philippines. But it's also time to set our sights up, and I think crowdfunding's a vehicle to do that. And we at Talino, we're excited to not just share our journey, but also be part of Big Brother mentoring if anybody needs help and wanted to get a few more sit downs and discussions around what our journey has taken us and what we can do to help. Feel free to reach out.
All right, thank you so much. I'm sure some startups will take us up on that offer. So, thank you so much, Winston. So we'll pause a bit just to give Winston some time to drop off, and then we will go to the Q&A from our audience. So in the meantime, please stay tuned. There will be more questions coming up. So, all right, so we're back. And so the first question is, and we'll direct this to everybody. Ananya mentioned don't go FOMO, right? But what are the red flags to watch out for? So
Sorry,
maybe, yeah, Ananya first. If you're not meant to react in a FOMO way, and of course you're meant to do due diligence, what do you watch out for? I guess as an investor,
right.
in equity crowdfunding.
I think one of the reasons not to get into FOMO and not to get too excited and to take things slowly is so you have time to do pattern recognition. And I don't think there's one set pattern that every investor follows. And I think that over time, as an angel investor, you should develop your own thesis and your antithesis. And by that I mean you should develop like what are some things that otherwise everything will look good, and it's such a high risk activity. It does then end up being gambling. So the way to move it away from gambling and into an area where it's you deploy critical analysis to it is your thesis should have, okay, I will my first level of filter will be that there is a strong founder market fit. I'm giving an example. It could, for some people, for some VCs, they don't look at anything where the market size is smaller than $10 billion, right? For other VCs, particularly at very early stage companies, typically, I mean, for me, it's about the founder. And not necessarily just the founder market fit, but just the founder themselves, the energy, the coachability, all of those things. And for certain other people can be, does this founder have the relevant experiences to match the market that they're targeting? It could be any of these. So that's like kind of your thesis. And then you should also have an antithesis, which is like areas you just won't go into. And again, it's so personal. For me, for instance, I don't look into large enterprise SaaS. I don't look into typical, deep tech plays. It just for various, so I mean, I've developed the kind of things, so it's easier for me to say no as a result. Otherwise, you get overwhelmed as an investor. So I think, I mean, red flags. Otherwise, I think the good thing about the WeFunder platform is that if you're an angel investor, what you're getting is perhaps the most transparent amount of information from a startup that anyone can. So this is a great platform from that perspective. These are great platforms from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Going to that point, Ananya, is I guess the rule of investing is if you don't understand it, don't invest, right? So I've had to explain what a lot of people have asked, what's a venture studio? So, I go into it and explain exactly what we do and go into further details to let them really understand. And then we show them the page and everything to break it down. And then once they have a clear picture and a deep understanding, then, I'm even comfortable to onboard them. A lot of investors are generally, or retail capital is thesis agnostic in many ways. So because they're so interested in many things, that's why mutual funds are very, very popular, because they want to diversify their portfolio and whatnot. But if they just see something that they like, then they might go in. And then if they just don't understand it, then tell them not to. It's just protect investors at the same time. And you don't want to, field monthly calls like, hey, how we doing, and all those things too. It's just not worth it. Yeah. So always pick the right investors too, that you believe should be part of your growth. And for equity crowdfunding, all the investors that participate, they're not on the cap table. They go under an SPV, and they're part of the lead investor. So there you go.
Sure. So as a specific red flag, or maybe an area to look into, in addition to those the context that was mentioned, is what is making sure that the founder of the company, especially the younger ones, have a very clear picture of what they'll do with the funds, and that's in relation to them raising that amount, and especially if they go beyond, because while that's generally a good thing, you definitely want to make sure that they have a clear vision and path for what they'll do, especially if the crowdfunding is the primary. And in that case, sometimes having more traditional one might have some oversight as to that. But in this case, so I think should be very careful on both sides with that. So that's something you can get a sense of from the beginning. Of course, you can't predict everything, but definitely being prepared for that.
No, definitely. All of that transparency, right, goes both ways. So, thank you for answering that. We do have a next question that's specifically for Talino, but I think others can also jump in. So, what other incentives can startups offer investors aside from equity? I know that WeFunder offers perks, but do you think there are other incentives that investors are interested in, and not just equity in the startup per se?
Well, lunch with Winston is a nice perk, just to be able to get a moment of his
It's
time
true.
to pick his brain and actually learn something. I think that's one of the intriguing parts of getting to work with, you and Winston's, the constant learning and the intellectual challenge that we, go through daily. I think that's a great perk. In addition to, Reese's rags to riches swag, of course. Um, yeah, there are all sorts of things. You're part of a community. You get to see it grow, your investment, and you're part of the journey. I think that's the most appealing thing is really believing in something, and it's not really as volatile as the market, as the stock market may be, at least from my standpoint. I would think, because there's so many factors, of course, but in the private market, I do like this concept. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to someday be able to say, hey, I was an early investor in that, right? The bragging
Mm.
rights. But for Nico and Ananya, do you think there are other, I guess, yeah, non-equity incentives that investors would be interested in, or you yourselves would be interested in, and that you hope other startups can talk about when they're doing equity crowdfunding?
Sure. Um, well, I've seen some of those where, right, there's those physical incentives, um, dinners being part of the company. Um, but right, I know it's been mentioned, but I believe strongly that um, it comes back to the community part. That I believe actually that ownership, that feeling part of it, and not having to focus on the dollar amount of the investment, but having that emotional bond is strong. For example, hear those stories where uh, even before this, people have one stock in a company that was started a long time ago, but they still feel strongly and they're proud of that story, or they've been there at a certain event. So I think um, I agree with that, and I think that will continue to be a strong attraction going forward.
All right, thank
And
you,
just
Ananya.
to add, I think something RJ said before. I think that's true. I think what investors are looking for more than just putting capital in is feeling like they're part of something big. So I think that more than just having that title of being an angel investor in the startup, having that relationship and feeling acknowledged, through updates and just, it requires also that relationship to be built over time between the founding team and those who are participating here. And I think that is one non-equity kind of huge benefit that you can get out of this.
I think
Great,
from
thank.
the
Oh,
entrepreneur's standpoint, from the
mm-hmm.
company, is I always talk about this case of like, Oculus, which was bought by Facebook for $2 billion. They went crowdfunding on Kickstarter, but if they
Mm-hmm.
went on a platform of equity crowdfunding like WeFunder, all of the people that invested would have been rich as well. But all the founders are the only ones that kept the money. So that's the main difference between what separates equity crowdfunding platforms from those gifting or Kickstarter and Indiegogo. But yeah, that's the what you want to do as an entrepreneur is help other people grow at the same time, and let them be part of the journey and profit too, and generate some sort of wealth for themselves. That's, for me, that's the inspiring part of why business is great. Trying to help people rise up together. Your staff, your team,
Mm-hmm.
everybody that's part of the journey and story is rising up together. I think.
It's really also opening access to the benefits, right? I mean, of course, assuming you go the long way, you want to bring everybody else along with you. And speaking of community, we do have our last question. I mean, time just flew by so fast, so we thank you all for the time you spent with us. And we're all here as one community in Philippine Startup Week. Ananya, definitely, we'd love to have more of you, and we wish we could fly you over here, and we wish you could travel here to Manila soon. You had spent some time in Manila earlier in your life, but as one community, not just in the Philippines, but as a global startup community, we would like to ask you. So just to check. Okay, so yeah, how do we empower more startups and investors to leverage, right? Or yeah, leverage the potentials of equity crowdfunding? I know we've touched on that in different bits and pieces, but I guess speaking from a community standpoint, Winston has also mentioned, how he's looking forward to having this in the Philippines. But as members of one community, what else can we do to
It's
unlock
a great
this
question.
potential?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think the best part of equity crowdfunding is this ecosystem that gets created, right? Even if not everyone invests in the same startup, everyone is investing in different, and there are those links being created. And I think the best way to leverage this and create exponential effects in this is by having platforms like this, talking about it, educating investors and entrepreneurs alike, VCs, rather than just turning someone away, encouraging the entrepreneurs who come, that you can't invest in every startup, but you could, encourage them to connect with one of these platforms. I think entrepreneurs could share their experiences, both the upside and downside of that, and I think that's all linked to having very effective and burgeoning startup ecosystems. So it all plays in, but I think the more communicative and the more the sharing there is between the various players, not just not just among entrepreneurs, but between entrepreneurs, investors, enablers like Talino, that's when an ecosystem like equity crowdfunding will grow.
Mhm.
Wonderful. RJ or Nico?
Sure. Believe as Nanya mentioned, and I agree with that. It's education, making efforts to have people know about it, right? Both on the entrepreneur side, both on the um, traditional investor side. As I mentioned before, that it's not an alternative in a sense that it's it is not on the same level as the others, but it is the same level. It's just a matter of time and getting people to know. Um, and hopefully it'll be sooner than later, because as far as the number of people investing, they'll tell their family, their friends about it. The investors in the ecosystem can say, point to one success example, and they'll believe in it. So I think it's just a matter of that positive reinforcement, and it has that potential, and I think it will get there.
Thank you. And
Mhm.
RJ?
Well, I think the crowdfunding space it's really a job engine at the same time. You're helping companies create new jobs,
Mm-hmm.
either locally or abroad or wherever they're trying to scale into. Um, that's what I think is the most impactful part as well, in being part of that ecosystem. Um, and I think specifically for the Philippines, like, I have family members that send money back home from the U.S. to their loved ones in the Philippines. What if you invest in their future and take a shot at a private company that might go the full way and go public? Um, a couple folks have mentioned, oh, I wish Google was around to be on crowdfunding back in the day. Can you imagine all the people that would have invested in that concept? So people are looking for companies to invest in. They're looking for that hot thing that might be a dream come true kind of thing. Um, yeah, it's really for the future. Um, yeah.
Thank you, RJ. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the day when there's a saying, where there's a saying in some circles, right, that instead of, or aside from giving baby showers, to women who are about to give birth, why not give business baby showers to entrepreneurs? And this is kind of like that, right? I mean,
Mm,
$100 is equivalent to maybe a really good meal, a bottle of wine, or it's a really good treat. But if you could give that to an entrepreneur who's starting out, that creates such a ripple effect that you all mentioned. This ecosystem, education, the community, and I'd love to, later on see Philippine startups and in Philippine startup, ecosystem players talking about, okay, so which startups did you invest in? In the same way we're talking about cryptos and ETFs and stocks, let's talk about startups that we ourselves would like to invest in. So that's been such a rich discussion, and I wish we had more time. But we're now wrapping up, and we will be sharing a summary of this segment. So I think we're ready to show some slides just to give our audience a bit of a treat. We've
well,
taken notes backstage, and we will be showing. Yeah, so I think we will be showing some slides, but we will also just want to thank again our guests. So Ananya Chandra calling from Singapore, Nico Sibal calling from the Bay Area, and my colleague RJ, calling from LA. It's early morning for the gentlemen, but they woke up bright and early for us. And for Ananya, I know you're still off to a midnight teaching sessions. So, startup life is super busy. But yeah, so we thank you so much. And we also thank, as we're just transitioning, I also want to thank our amazing cross-country team at Talino Venture Labs. So operating out of Manila and the US, working from our hacker house at LA. So shout out to the hacker house folks and from different parts of the Philippines. And, thank you to all of you for your time. So I think we're now ready to show our summary slides. Right, team?
Cool.
There you go. Okay, I love it. Even has our speakers headshot. So some key insights and some quotable quotes from our speakers. So from Ananya, equity crowdfunding gives startups the opportunity to reach out to people who actually use their product. They can test ideas directly on their target market, and it's also a test run for a potential IPO in the future. Right? I think we talked about the mini IPO, and this is a great opportunity, especially for startups in the B2C space. Okay, next from Winston. Equity crowdfunding allows individuals to be part of our mission to serve the unbanked. One can be an angel investor for $100. So imagine what you can invest with $1,000 or $10,000. And okay, from Nico, consider equity crowdfunding as a primary source of funding and not just as a backup, and take advantage of it. So this is really a tip to startups. And I know it's also been mentioned, don't be afraid of it. There are a lot of disclosures, there's a lot of work, but it's also a really rewarding process. And last but not least, from RJ, before diving into equity crowdfunding, have the confidence to be a caretaker of other people's hard-earned money. Be comfortable with the level of transparency it entails. So it's really a journey, but one that is rewarding for both the startups and the investors. So thank you to our team for putting that all together in real time. So once again, we thank you all, and we'd like to invite you to, at this point, just invite you to visit Talino's WeFunder page. We've talked about it for the past hour. That would be at wefunder.com/Talino Venture Labs, just to see, what all the fuss is all about. And we also, of course, invite you, and you see here on the screen, our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter handle. So just check at Talino Labs. And of course, we'd like to invite you to stay tuned. We do have a regular series of what we call Talino Talks. And if you follow our Facebook and Instagram accounts, and I think also on LinkedIn, we'll be sharing more details about the next Talino Talks. So that would be it. If you want to be part of our journey as we grow and scale and make financial inclusion possible for 1.7 billion people, we invite you to invest in Talino through WeFunder. But for the other startups here, I think the most important takeaway is equity crowdfunding is a tool and a platform you can use. Something for investors that can also, we can also leverage that. And as a community, it's all something we can all learn and grow from. So again, thank you so much. Our panelists have had to exit the studio, but thank you so much to the team and to all of you. And have a great day. Bye.
This is Brittany. She's been tasked with producing the company's next big event, happening in just a few weeks. The event technology options are seemingly endless. Until she found the perfect platform to engage and delight attendees. This is Excel Events, a virtual and hybrid events platform that has all of your must-have features in one place. From connecting attendees to brand exhibitors, seamless networking functionality, and custom ticketing options, you can manage the event ecosystem all from one place. Stream your live videos right on the platform, or integrate your favorite streaming provider so speakers can focus on delivering their message, while event managers are confident about delivering their run of show. Attendees can have direct access to speakers using built-in chat features. They can have one-on-one sessions with speakers or other attendees to create an intimate networking setting. Attendees are able to connect to multiple live sessions without ever leaving the platform. Create better events with flexible agendas. Native live streaming. In-depth analytics. Lead gen management. Multiple concurrent session functionality. Integration with popular software solutions. Learn more about Excel Events by visiting excelevents.com. Try it for free today and change the way you see events.
Your customers have bills to pay, essentials to buy, and services to hire. Make it secure, reliable, and hassle-free for them with PayMaya. PayMaya's payment solutions have you covered because now you can accept all kinds of cashless payments any way you do business, whether it's in-store, delivery, via mobile app, on your website, or even without a website. Plus, you can monitor your business growth on a single dashboard.
Nandoon ka at my lowest. Nung isa-isa na wala mga customers ko. Nung akala ko, pasara na shop ko. You gave me hope when all seemed dark and when I was lost. You encouraged me to look beyond, to go beyond, to focus on my family, friends, and blessings despite it all. Lahat yun, naitawid ko kasi nandyan ka sa tabi ko, nagpapaalala na kaya ko. So ngayon dahil sa'yo, mas matapang na ako to face any challenge. And now I realize what matters most. So thank you. Thank you for being there for me through everything. Nagbago man ang mundo, alam ko, kaya ko na harapin ang araw-araw na walang takot. Kasi you are just right by my side. And I can always count on you. Kaya salamat, ikaw talaga ang BFF ko.
Filipinos have struggled with the most essential facets of life, like health, education, livelihood, managing finances, and many more. Our country needs all the help it can get to manage its burden.
We want to maximize digital technology to provide solutions for real customer pain points. This is how 917 Ventures came to life.
The Philippines' largest corporate venture builder. We ideate, launch, accelerate, and scale new business ideas that have the potential to grow fast. Through our portfolio companies, we empower consumers and businesses to power through and emerge stronger every day, pandemic or not.
Our vision at GCash is finance for all.
Beyond financial services, GCash has become a super live app with over 51 million registered users.
Consulta MD is the largest telehealth company in the Philippines with over 1 million users.
Health Now is an integrator platform that brings health and care to every Filipino in one tap at the comfort of your homes.
With these healthcare solutions, Filipinos now have access to doctors 24/7 and get their medicines delivered on the same day.
And as we all strive to search for safer ways to go about our days, we understand how customers are starting to rely on online grocery shopping for their daily essentials. This is where PureGo comes in.
PureGo has become one of Metro Manila's top-of-mind grocery delivery services, with its best-priced grocery items from trusted brands.
Sparking a difference on ad tech, digital media, and creatives that helps brands create more meaningful connections with their customers by leveraging data and prioritizing the power of insights.
We at Rush offer an out-of-the-box solution that helps businesses start their digital transformation in the most cost-effective manner.
Rush and AdSpark's marketing, loyalty programs, and e-commerce solutions help future-proof businesses. Prepare them for the surge of online shopping and transactions, and find their footing in the digital world. 917 Ventures continues to offer innovative solutions with the addition of 2 more portfolio companies. Enkiro, with its suite of artificial intelligence-powered products, and M360 with its multi-channel communications services. Our secret? We innovate for the people, not the prestige. We ideate opportunities, launch solutions, accelerate lives.
We are committed to build more ventures to further accelerate the country's digital transformation.
The future is now. The future is us. We are 917 Ventures.
Multisys Technologies Corporation is your one-stop system provider. We do advanced systems research and development, focus on evolving assets of IT systems, platforms, and software solutions. We show integrated set of programs and solutions that drive businesses nowadays. Backed by our R&D team, we are able to customize solutions according to your business requirements with speed, accuracy, and efficiency. In our efforts to help Filipinos' way of life through digital innovations and transformation, we partnered with IT companies, system contractors, government agencies, big conglomerates, small and medium enterprises, and tech startups as well. We go above and beyond partnerships. It's a teamwork, and we make sure that your business and ours grow together. We find success in every collaboration and establish meaningful connections. That's why we want to partner with you. Here at Multisys, we empower your business. Multisys is a one-stop software company. So instead of you talking to too many integrators, you'll be able to come up with a centralized and automated way of doing things. We have a team that really move like one. So they are really united. So instead of one programmer, one system approach, I think multiple programmers joining force together, they can collaborate easily. We have speed, we have accuracy, we have efficiency. I think that's the secret of the group. That's why companies love to work with us. It will be faster for them. It will be more efficient to develop and deploy a certain system. They are a designer, they are a coder or programmer, they are a systems analyst, they are a quality control expert, and they're a UI and UX expert as well. That skill is not easy to really somehow have in one programmer. Multisys can really customize the system. We can customize it according to their needs, design for their own and existing process flows. We're all racing against the clock. Priority of Multisys is to elevate the lifestyle of every Filipino by delivering automated, integrated systems to make sure that we can fast-track the operation, processes. Cause I'm about to end, I think it's all about how fast can you deliver a certain technology. Speed matters nowadays. Sabi nga sa Tagalog, diba, daig ng maagap ang masipag. That's why we develop futuristic systems. What we do is that we predict the future, we develop, and then the moment that we are partnered with a certain entity, we're able to show them a live system. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. It will be a prototype, it will be a working system. So this will give them an idea how to solve a problem. This will give them an idea to expedite their processes. So not only showing them a vision, but showing them a solution already. We develop end-to-end solutions for 8 industries now. And we would like to automate other industries as well. Currently, we have an end-to-end solution for information technology businesses, okay, ERPs. We have e-government solutions, healthcare, an end-to-end solution for utility, whether you are an electric company, a water utility company, a telco, or a cable utility company. We do also retail, hospitality, academe, and of course, the new one is the banking and finance. Here at Multisys, we empower your business.
There's a reason why for the last 13 years, startups overwhelmingly prefer to build on top of AWS. We have the largest number of services, making it easy for you to take on some of the biggest challenges with the smallest teams. We also have partnerships with the top VCs, accelerators, and incubators around the world, making it easier to secure your next round of funding.
I'm a solution architect with the AWS Head Start program. What we do is we work with startups in the education sector, and we help them build their services on AWS.
So We Power Tech is AWS's diversity and inclusion outreach program. The program is really twofold. One is to increase the number of underrepresented technologists within the industry, and the second is to provide a platform for them to be seen and heard.
If you're wondering how the AWS evangelism team might be able to help your startup, there are many ways. We're technically credible across our entire catalog of products, so we can help you figure out which services might be able to meaningfully impact your business. We also want to help tell your story. So if you're building something cool, we want to know about it and help spread that message to the world. So you might end up on stage at an event like AWS Summit. If you're a startup, you should also definitely check out the AWS Lofts. These are event spaces that are free to anyone with an AWS account. And you can treat them like co-working spaces, but the awesome thing about them is that we also have people like technical evangelists like myself, solutions architects that come and give hands-on technical workshops and sessions to help you learn how to more effectively utilize the AWS products and platforms that you're already building on top of.
We are a dedicated team of people that love startups. We just want to come and help you with whatever we can, whether it be technical or business focused. We are here to help guide you and make sure that you do have a say in what's going on. We do get your feedback. We do bring that feedback to the service teams. That is what we're here for.
And one of my big dreams is to be part of creating 10 million meaningful careers here in the Philippines in the next 30 years. How do we get there? I believe it's gonna take a big shift in our culture and mindset, plus an acceleration of the growth of our local ecosystem to give more Filipinos the freedom to grow and flourish as entrepreneurs, and more specifically to grow as whole life leaders who will have the character, community, and the competency to solve seemingly impossible problems here in the Philippines with ventures that are going to transform culture and communities all around the globe in our lifetime.
My name is John Aguilar, and I'm a serial entrepreneur based in Manila, Philippines. I've gathered a formidable cast of business and industry leaders looking to fund and support the country's post-pandemic solutions. Dennis Anthony Uy, co-founder and CEO of Converge ICT Solutions. David Almirol Jr., founder and CEO of Multisys Technologies. Rose Ong, Senior Executive Vice President and COO of Wilcon Depot. Bernard D., Visionary Mayor of Kawayan City, Isabela. And Jay Villarante, Chairman and CEO of 8 Ventures. Our goal is to find and support the new breed of heroes taking on the challenges of a post-pandemic future. Many will try, but only a few will make it to the final pitch.
We know it's not always easy finding passion and purpose. We know sometimes you can feel more overwhelmed than inspired. But we also know that connecting people to jobs that matter really matters to you. And that's why we're here for you. We know you need top talent to build your business, so we connect you to more than 33 million eager job seekers across the region. And we know strong relationships are essential. We speak your language.
Hello, Jobstreet. สวัสดีค่ะ Hello, Jobstreet.
And provide experienced local support. We also know you want powerful data and insights to empower you and make you look smart in front of your boss. We know while hiring is never simple, our innovations and products make it easier. From delivering better value for your investment to standing out from the crowd. We've got you covered. And we know you like results. We're 2 times more successful at placing talent with employers. How do we know all this? We're your hiring expert and the #1 trusted talent partner in Asia. Start hiring with us now. We know you want to.
Here at Open Space Ventures, we believe in investing with active intelligence. We have a singular focus on Southeast Asia, and we invest in tech companies across all the different sectors. The strategy is executed by our diverse and deep regional team, as well as our active operations team. And by harnessing active intelligence, we have worked with our portfolio companies to realize bolder visions and accelerate their progress in a responsible and sustainable way. We find, build, and back game-changing companies, and that's the Open Space way.
If your business isn't online, you need to catch up and fast. PayMongo helps you accept online payments from credit cards and e-wallets, whether you're selling on social media or through your own website or app. Get started with no upfront costs. Sign up for free today. If your business isn't online, you need to catch up and fast. PayMongo helps you accept online payments from credit cards and e-wallets, whether you're selling on social media or through your own website or app. Get started with no upfront costs. Sign up for free today.
UBX's goal is to make banking invisible by using cutting-edge technology and data to make financial services seamlessly integrated into the moments that matter for people. By digitizing financial institutions and their back-office systems to make processes more efficient. By equipping entrepreneurs with the proper tools to run their businesses and empowering them to participate in the global economy. And by leveraging on years of experience in banking and finance, logistics, real estate, and tech services. It is our mission to build safer, faster, and more customer-centric fintech solutions for a more financially inclusive tomorrow. Because at UBX, we include everyone.
Calling all small business owners, meet Communicart, a Rappler-led initiative where small businesses can advertise on Rappler's platforms at affordable rates. Get featured on our socials or through a listicle. How about an article? Let Rappler's discerning audience know about your business. Email us at communicart@rappler.com for more information.